Hello, everyone. Hello, you. I'm Crescent Dragon Wagon, and that hello goes whether you're across the street, whether you're across the state, whether you're across the country, whether you're across the world, you are still my friend, and even we can say colleague, because we're neighbors in the world of story. If you like to listen to stories or read them or think about them or write them, that's where we gather. Today, our story is going to be part 5 of The Man with the Purple Eyes. Now, let me tell you how I came to be reading these stories to you. I write stories, and this lady, my mother, Charlotte Zolotow, she also wrote stories. And in a way, you can say she's with us today through her words. Now, my mother is dead. She died in 2013. And I always tell people, don't worry about that. She was 98 years old. She lived for a long time. She wrote lots of books in that. We had a great time, especially in her later years, being together as mother and daughter. So even though I miss her, it wasn't that sad a death because it came at the end of her life. And when I read one of her books aloud, and The Man with the Purple Eyes is one of her books, I get to, in a way, bring her back to life through her words, as well as enjoy the story myself. So The Man with the Purple Eyes, I think you've been following along. If you haven't, you can listen to every other section that we wrote, and if you found your way here, you can find it to parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. But at this point, we are on the last part of The Man with the Purple Eyes, and we're going to get to find out how it comes out. What happened to that seed that the stranger, when Anna was in front of the florist shop, gave her or traded her for that secret wishing penny. We're going to get to find out what happens. And I hope you've been wondering. And it is my pleasure to read the end of the story and to let you find out. Although there is a tiny little mystery at the end that you'll have to hear. But I kind of love stories like that because then you turn them over in your mind. They stay with you. And you write the end of the story in a way yourself. So a good ending gives you just enough that you feel satisfied and then you figured it out, but it leaves a little bit of something for you to say, well, I wonder if, or what if, or do you think he really was? Or. That's the part of storytelling and story hearing and story reading, where just like the book is simply paper and words lying quietly on a shelf till you pick it up and start reading it, similarly, you, the reader, finish the story in your own thinking and responding to it. So I'm so happy you're here to hear the end of The Man with the Purple Eyes, written by Charlotte Zolotow. There she is. You can see her holding a pen in that picture. The writer, and also my mother, illustrated. That means the few pictures that are in this book are by a man named Joe Lasker. He illustrated. And I'm Charlotte's daughter, as well as writing my own books. We'll be back to reading some shorter books, some by me, some by Charlotte, when we come back. But right now, let's find out what happens. The next morning, as soon as it turned light outside, Anna and her mother were up and dressed and on their way through the hot city morning to the sanitarium. When they opened the door to her father's room, a strange excitement went through Anna. Never since he had left home had she seen her father look this way. He was sitting up in a chair by the window, and the stuffy white room had changed overnight. The plant on the table beside him cast its fragrance over the whole room, and the shadow made a lovely purple pattern across the sunlit wall and part of the ceiling above them. The entire room was fragrant and fresh like a country evening. Settling on the stool at her father's feet, Anna told him the whole story of the morning last week. How she had wanted to get him something lovely for his birthday. How the loveliest thing she could think of was wildflowers. How she knew there were no wildflowers in the city, and so she had hoped to buy a single flower from the florist with the good luck penny he, her father, had given her so long ago. She told him about the florist's window, with its little stream and ferns and philodendron. She told him that she hadn't seen the man with purple eyes at all until he spoke to her. And she told her father how he had seemed like an old friend, and how she had just poured out her whole story to him. She told her father how the man had asked her what wildflowers she meant, and hadn't seemed surprised, but smiled as though he were pleased at her liking them better than the roses and sweet peas in the window. When she told her father about the man's eyes and his strange crooked smile, her father leaned forward in his chair and took her hand. Then she told him how the man had simply vanished without a sound, just disappeared as if he had been part of a dream. Her father asked her to tell her this part again, and then he leaned back in his chair. "It is a sign," he said. "It is an omen. I know now that I shall be out of here soon and back home with you both, working on my book." He saw how puzzled both Anna and her mother looked. He smiled at them. "It's incredible," he said, "and I don't say that it is true, but still." He was silent, lost in thought. Then he smiled again and began. "You know, when I came to the city, I stopped work on my book in the middle of one of the legends. It is an old legend which says that there was once a beautiful wildflower, purple and star-shaped, very fragrant, that grew in the country, on the hills and by the wayside, like a carpet of sweetness over the earth. Because it was common, people ignored it, or walked through it, or tore it up and left it uprooted to die on the ground. One day the god of wildflowers grew angry. The legend says he was a tall man and looked like an ordinary mortal, except for his eyes. He had purple eyes, the same shade as the wildflower. That day, when he grew angry, he ordered every flower and leaf of the wild purple starflower to wither from the earth. "It will only be restored," he said, "when I find someone who loves all flowers, even those that grow wild as weeds." "Now," Anna's father went on, "oddly enough, the very old botanical books show a flower that matches the description of the flower in the legend. Not only that," he paused and he looked at Anna and her mother. "Not only that, it matches in every respect this vine you have brought me. But botanists for hundreds of years have been trying unsuccessfully to discover a living plant that resembles the one in the old books, and they have all assumed that the legend of the god with purple eyes was made up to explain the disappearance of this once common flower from the earth. The fact that I actually have a plant of it, that Anna got the plant the way she did, It will cause not only the people interested in mythology and legends, but the scientists and botanists to investigate and further give consideration to the old myth. I no longer need to worry about the time I take away from teaching to write this book. The book is assured of success, and I feel as though the ancient God had sent me a personal sign through you, Anna, my child. Mr. Martin leaned back. Leaned back against the pillow of his chair with his eyes half closed. The excitement of hearing Anna's story and telling his own had been a tremendous one. But as the remaining days of the hot summer passed, he grew stronger and stronger, and the new plant was more beautiful than ever. Its perfume sweeter, its leaves glossier, the lovely purple indeed like starlight in the cold sanitarian room. I don't care if it is the missing flower, really, Anna said one day in the middle of a visit to her father. I think it is the loveliest flower I've ever seen. Even if the country was covered with it like grass, I would never think of it as a weed. Her father smiled. I'm so eager to get back to work on my book, he said. So eager to tell the old myth now that I shall return home with you and Mother. As soon as Dr. Barley says I may, we will go back to the country, the three of us together, and I will write this beautiful tale that you have made come alive. Anna hugged her father so tightly he didn't see the tears of relief and happiness in her eyes. For the doctor had said, had he not, that all Anna's father needed in order to leave the hospital was desire. Now the Vargoses would not keep the house for the next 2 years. Now she and her mother would not live in the cramped city apartment with the noise and confusion of the city around them. Now she would have her dream of being home together with her mother and father, and she would be able once again to wander over the countryside covered with the wild flowers she loved so well. The first night they were back in their home, Anna went outside with a sprig of the purple flower in her hand. She dug a hole in the ground and gently placed the vine in it. Then she pressed the earth firmly around it. The flower shone like a lovely star in the evening light. "That is the way, child," she thought she heard a voice say. Far down the road, someone was walking away. But he vanished before she could call, and now the only sound on the evening wind was the sound of her parents' voices, slowly rising and falling inside their lighted house. Next morning, when Anna and her mother and her father woke up, there was a pale lavender light, like a reflection on the walls. Anna ran to the window and looked out. The entire hillside was covered with the purple flower. The white picket fence was hidden by the vine. It ran over, spilled into the roadside, forked up the mountain, perfumed the whole sunlit morning with its sweetness. But the man with the purple eyes was never seen or heard of again. The end.